Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 6 of the book club for the 90-day Soulmate Plan, my new book. I'm so grateful for you for joining me today. And in case I didn't or you don't know me, my name is Sarika Jain. I'm a love and relationship coach, and I've been coaching for around 15 years, coaching women around finding their soulmates and also creating soulmate relationships with themselves and creating their dream lives. So I'm so excited to be sharing this week's book club, which is about the father wound and healing ancestral blocks. So we're on week 6, and I have my baby with me. She's nursing. See, she's 4 months old, and couldn't find any help today, so she's going to be joining us and hopefully taking a nap. So maybe we could just go ahead and get started with a few minutes of silence. So if you could close your eyes and relax your shoulders. I like to start off with the 10-minute mindfulness meditation just to ground us and, incorporate the practice of mindfulness in this work around love. And so, yeah, just close your eyes. And together, let's take an inhale and exhale. And together, let's take another inhale and exhale. And together, let's take one last long inhale, filling up your whole body with white light. And I'm going to lead us through something called a unity meditation. Okay. Something I offer to my clients in the beginning of our calls. So I invite you to close your eyes and imagine a white light streaming in from your higher self. This white light of love, healing, and grace permeating your scalp, filling your eyes, nose, ears, and mouth. This white light flowing down your throat, down your spine and back, your shoulders, filling every cell with the energies of love, healing, and grace. This white light flowing down your arms and hands, to your breasts, your heart, your chest, your lungs, flowing down to your stomach, your gut, your reproductive organs, and other sacred organs, filling every cell with the energies of love, healing, and grace. This white light flowing down your pelvic floor, down your legs and feet into Mother Earth, circling her, surrounding her. This white light flowing up your feet, up your legs, and all the way to your heart. You are born out of love by Mother Earth and Father Sky. You are loved deeply for who you are. You're wanted and needed on this planet exactly as you are. Bring your attention to your heart, noticing the sensations of your heartbeat, smiling at your heart, gratitude for your heart, love for your heart. And then bring your attention down to your gut, noticing the sensations arising, lovingly accepting what is. And then bring your attention back to your heart and think of someone or something you are grateful for. I want intention for today. And I'll say a prayer. Dear God, dear higher selves of all the women listening to this call, dear life, dear, thank you for all of your blessings, for your unconditional love, support for our journeys. May we create a unified field between all of us in order to access deepest wisdom from Source. May we align with the energies of love, healing, grace, forgiveness, ecstasy, and surrender. And may we create the conditions to attract a healthy, loving life partnership and other opportunities and abundance into our lives. May we be guided to living to our full self-expression. Thank you. You can slowly open your eyes. So welcome. So we're on week 6, and I'm going to just open up, trying to open with the little baby on my arm. Her name is Lara. She's really, really cute. I wish I could show her to you, but she's nursing. So yeah, this is quite I don't know. This is totally out of my comfort zone to be, doing this whole motherhood thing. And doing this book club. That's why I did this from my home because it'd be easier while I'm watching the kids. So let's go to 156, healing the father wound. So I share this story about Grace. That's not her real name. And this woman had a very good relationship with her dad, but it was because her relationship with her mom wasn't good at all. And both parents had survived cultural revolution in China, so they'd had, you know, a lot of trauma that they'd experienced. And when I met this woman, Grace, she had so much like low self-esteem. She didn't feel confident in her womanhood. She didn't feel connected to her sexuality. And she was so beautiful, like extremely beautiful woman, very talented. Like I was surprised because to me, she looks like a model, actually, like objectively speaking. And yet she would just get into these codependent relationships with guys who didn't even respect her, show up for her. She was never, she could never rely on them. So, when we went deep, it turned out that her relationship with her own father was so, push and pull. I mean, she had such deep distrust for men. She didn't feel safe or protected in her childhood. Her dad didn't approve of her choices. And so, so because of that, her understanding of the male psyche and, just her own relationship with the masculine within her, with other men, it was just, it was very what is it? Dysfunctional, right? So, when she went through this process of healing her father wound, she had such deep revelations around why she was attracting men that were unavailable, and of course, she had to first build her self love foundation, which is what we covered in the first 4 weeks of the book club. And because she needed to build that sense of home within herself. And then she really needed to build in her own inner mother and inner father. Like she just had she was like an orphan. She didn't have any parent figures in her life. And so she didn't have that like unconditional loving support of a father or mother. Like her parents loved her the best they could, but just to the level of their consciousness. Right? So yeah, so now she's doing great. She, after we finished coaching, was dating really sweet guys who showed up for her, and that was that. So I'm gonna read from page 157. Because of this complicated relationship with her parents as an adult, Grace struggled to find a sense of home. And I already covered this. So, actually, I covered all of this in what we just talked about. So, page 158, I want you to just close your eyes for a moment and just imagine your father. What was your relationship like with him? Was he mostly loving and supportive or distant and moody? Maybe he was somewhere in between. Whatever your relationship was with your father forms a big part of your psyche about men, money. I didn't mention money here, love, career, and so much more. As I shared before, we have masculine and feminine energies running through us, and our understanding of the masculine and the resultant beliefs and coping mechanisms we've picked up impacts our masculine side and the men we continue to attract in our lives. So if you're one of the lucky women who's had a great dad, a great relationship with your dad, then you must celebrate now. Like that is such a rarity. I mean, it's true for any parent, right? If you've had a really good parent or two sets of parents, or sorry, two parents that were amazing, then just really count yourself lucky. Most women haven't, most men haven't, right? Every parent has some flaws. And so, if your relationship with your father was, either pretty good or complicated or just downright painful, then you're in the majority. Yes, daddy issues is a real thing. It really is. Most women struggle with it with varying degrees. However, all is not lost. In fact, you have so much more to gain if you approach the situation with the lens of healing and understanding. Women who've had difficult relationships with their fathers have overcome their misgivings and turned into powerful, loving, wise versions of themselves, manifesting tremendous relationships with men. As I mentioned before, life gives us certain lessons to learn and grow from, and choosing our parents before we're born is perhaps the most foundational of all of life's teachings. And I will say, some of the most compassionate people I've ever met had really challenging parents, like narcissistic, bipolar. Here, there's Thara, and she's asleep. See, she's falling asleep. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to put her in her little rocker. Yeah. So, yeah. Your relationship with your father, however loving or challenging, is your pathway to understanding the masculine and creating a whole new relationship with men. Sometimes, through our own trauma, we get a chance to unlearn things in order to look at the world with fresh possibility. God knows our world needs a new perspective on how women relate to men. I mean, I think this is the root of my work. I'm so moved by the relationship between men and women. And right now, in my opinion, men have such a poor reputation. Um, we, as women, we mistrust men. It's just like ingrained in us. And maybe some of it is from conditioning and what really happened, the traumas. And some of it is, like our perception, right? From our own childhood or what we've seen or heard from others. So this is your chance to kind of reclaim that healing within yourself, to find forgiveness or find reconciliation or resolution or whatever you want to call it, and kind of just like create a new perception of what the masculine looks like within yourself and in the world, right? And when you resolve this, then you start attracting in healthy men. Okay. And there are so many wonderful, healthy men. I mean, once my clients start doing this work, they're just amazed by how many emotionally available men there are. And they're like, where have these guys been? So the way your father related to your mother is vital. If he was a consistent provider and protector, then your family felt safe and secure. On top of that, if he was loving, attentive, and appreciative, your mother probably felt emotionally stable enough to be able to shine and be the best version of herself. Yet, if he was abusive or emotionally unavailable, then your mother might have suffered and you might have taken on the feelings of protectiveness, resentment, and distrust, amongst other difficult emotions. So, this sometimes happens where we connect with our mothers so much. Like, I remember my healer saying that my heart was connected to my mom's, and whatever she felt, I felt. So, if she was angry at my dad, then I would feel it. Like, I would just side with her, as a kid, looking back, and I think I had just a more critical view of my dad because of, that relationship. And so, it took me like this kind of work to pull myself out and to develop my own relationship, my own perspective of my dad. Your father also played a key role in your psychological development, starting from the moment you were born. In fact, I once heard that a man's response to seeing his daughter for the first time after birth is imprinted on her brain, whether he was afraid, protective, or delighted. The difference between a loving father and an absent father makes a huge difference in how the child grows up. A father plays an important role in how a woman develops her self esteem, perceives her body image, and how she does academically, and ultimately the kind of man she attracts. While the mother's role is to help the child feel safe and nurtured, a father helps a daughter understand the world and how to be self expressed. He teaches many qualities about resilience, how to be financially stable, and how to have healthy, trusting relationships. He protects his daughter, is a provider and helps her assert her boundaries. Sometimes the role of the father is downplayed compared to a mother's, yet it's equally important. Sadly, fathers sometimes struggle with finding a role in their home. So I have a lot of compassion for fathers. I think fathers play such an important role. I see it with my kids. I mean, my husband will play rough with them the way I can't. He loves them, like he just has this magnificent masculine energy that they gravitate towards. And he's so, always thinking about how to provide for our house. He's taken on this provider role for us. And he's so reliable and he works hard at all of this, And so I have just so much respect for the role of father. Over the years, I've developed deep compassion for the masculine and everything that men have been through. Being in a patriarchal system seems beneficial to men, but it isn't. It's emasculating, and starting at a young age, boys learn to hide their emotions and compete in alpha male success oriented settings. A really great documentary that I watched related to this is called The Masks We Wear, I think. It's on Netflix. And it's a documentary about, how boys grow up in today's culture, how they have to suppress their emotions and the impact of that, and how they have to compete against each other. And so it's a really, like, it really opened my eyes. It gave me a sense of empathy. Parents from older generations have placed a lot of expectations on their sons to carry out the success of their lineage and to be providers for their families. Young men aren't taught anything about raising children or being in relationships, and also got married early in previous generations. In fact, they're taught unhealthy things about sex and women's psychology. Like, just look at all of men's magazines, right? So, and they struggle with self expression in general. On top of that, we've been living in a war culture where so many men have been drafted, served in the military, and have PTSD. So, there are a lot of things that I talk about here around how the masculine's been impacted by, the culture we've been in. And so just having that understanding, that lens, right? Because if you're dating men and you're wondering like why he withdraws, like why do men shut down so quickly? Um, even emotionally available men like my husband, right? Like he has limits around expressing his emotions. In fact, being in a loving relationship like the one that we're in has been so healing for him. It's been, like my role as, his lover has been about being that divine feminine partner with whom he can start feeling loved and nurtured and allowing his healthy masculine side to shine through. And when I met him, of course, he was on this journey. He was on this journey of, you know, learning about himself and claiming his truth, and just, but and that's what attracted me to him. His sense of just being reliable and supportive and available, emotionally available, and willing to listen to me. And so I saw a lot of potential, not that I recommend dating based on potential, but I just felt safe with him. And so, you know, through the nurturing aspect of the feminine, men can really start shining. It's because of this nurturing energy that women bring. We can start helping release like generations of wounding that men have. I mean, this is so profound. Like, this reminds me of like priestess work. So as a woman who's doing this kind of work, you're basically inviting in a man and you're helping build that healthy relationship, like helping your man step into his divine masculine. But first, you kind of have to understand the trauma that the masculine has been in and why like your father, what your father went through specifically, right? And just kind of like unraveling all of that so that you can, start to look at men like through a healing perspective, through a loving perspective. Okay. As a result of this, most men struggle with their sexuality, emotions, communication skills, and have unhealthy conditioning that they're unraveling just as we are. Hi. Okay. So, in order to understand the father wound, so we're on page 161, it's helpful to understand the kind of relationship you might have had and what impact it's had on you. And I've shared 5 archetypes of men down here so you can maybe get an idea of what kind of trauma you experienced or what your coping mechanisms were like. So, some trauma responses include fight, flight, flee, and there's a fourth one called fawn. And fawning is basically appeasing someone just to kind of stay safe. And so, based on what kind of trauma you experienced with your father growing up, not trauma, but any sort of, hurt or pain, like whatever your response was to ways in which you felt, hurt or betrayed or whatever by your father, core needs that he couldn't fulfill, it's important to see that that becomes part of your coping mechanism and how you deal with men in general. Okay. Or maybe like what types of men you are attracting because subconsciously you're just calling that in. Okay. So I've listed angry tyrant, far and away. So the angry tyrant is kind of temperamental, erupts out of the blue. The second one is far and away. So this type of father spends a lot of time away from home. The third one is here but not present. So you see a lot of dads right now, they're on their phones, they're around their kids, but like just not present, right? And I think that's probably a big problem in today's society anyways. A lot of mothers and fathers just aren't present for their kids. So you can see what the impact is from that. The fourth one is the part-time dad. And I think this is like the more traditional father mother role. And, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that, in the part-time dad role, he's busy with his work, his career. And then when he has a moment, he takes care of the kids and household needs. Right. And so there are certain outcomes from that. I see a lot of smart, successful women coming from that kind of home, right? Like she wants to be like her dad. She wants to be smart and successful in her workplace. And then the fifth is Mr. Perfect. And this kind of dad rarely exists. I will say my husband is like that, and I know a lot of men who do this work, who do the work of, self-awareness and, trying to balance out their career with their personal life and all of that. Like they're these types of dads are there to take care of the house, and they juggle their career and homes, and they're emotionally present too. So the drawback to this kind of dad, I have coached women whose dads were like that, and these women, they pedestalize their dads and then they don't let anyone near them because no man compares to their dad. So that's a problem too. Okay. So sometimes it's not a bad thing to have a father who was difficult, from the standpoint of like unlearning and creating like this empowering relationship with men. Okay. So, coming from a place of compassion and forgiveness for your father, yet being open and honest with yourself is your path to recovery. You can reparent yourself from the missed connections with your father and create a strong father within you that will always love you, protect you, and provide for you no matter what. Okay. So I've shared some journaling exercises to do with respect to your dad, like what were his qualities? I mean, this is just beautiful journaling to do no matter what, right? Like just taking stock, like what role has your dad played on you? What beliefs did he have? What experiences did he have growing up? You know, when did you feel a sense of connection with him and when did you not? And then the second journal is around his life and his beliefs and how they played a role on you. And then once you've done that, then the third is around acknowledging needs that your father didn't provide for you. So this is really beautiful because it really, page 165, it really, helps you understand what it is that you are missing so that you're not unconsciously seeking for it outside of you, like start providing specific need for yourself and you'll see the world will start changing for you once you accept that role as the inner father, the role that your father couldn't necessarily provide fully. Okay. And then the fourth exercise is around cutting cords with your father. And this is, again, a beautiful exercise around just releasing him, but staying unconditionally loving. Okay. So I'm going to end with this prayer. Dear God, I pray for love, healing, and grace for my father. I'm thankful for the life he gave me, for the ways he nourished and supported me. I give gratitude. For the ways he acted from his wounds and unintentionally hurt me, please forgive me. Please help me to forgive him and receive your healing. May his soul be blessed, his way forward be paved with grace and ease. Please help us release each other and any psychic cords that no longer serve. Please also help heal any bitterness or anger I still hold. I recognize the role he played in helping me to be where I am, for which I'm so grateful. I would not be here without him. Thank you, dear Father, for your service to me, for bringing me into this world. May you be happy. May you be at peace. May you be free from suffering. May we enter into a relationship that's in alignment with God's plan for us. I vow to step into each day in greater understanding and compassion for my Father and our relationship to the best of my abilities. Thank you, God, for I am free now. Amen. Such a beautiful prayer. I was actually doing this prayer this morning while I was reading this chapter while the sun was rising and hitting me from the window. And it was so beautiful. It was like, wow. I mean, you can come back to this work over and over, right? Like every time something triggers you about your partner or your father or something. And then, you realize it's kind of like a lifelong journey to find acceptance for your parents and heal that, that inner feminine, the inner masculine. And that's okay. That's like part of this path, this life path, this spiritual journey, this journey of love, unconditional love. Okay. On page 169, I share like how to release any remaining charge and find forgiveness and acceptance for your parents. I think that this is really cool because I actually experienced it myself. I was at a Vipassana meditation, which was, it's like a 10-day silent meditation. And I realized I still harbored some anger towards my parents. And so, and one of my parents actually, and like that anger was eating me up. Like it was just like festering, and it wasn't anything my mother did, right? She's a perfectly wonderful woman, actually. But it was my own hurts that I was still processing, and so, or my own like judgments, actually, there were judgments. And so I went through this whole process where I like first got angry and then I grieved and then I started practicing appreciation. And that really started opening my heart to loving her. And then at the end, I practiced love, just sending loving energy. And it was so profound. Like this whole process of catharsis was so like profound. Like I just felt so much love, you know? And I was so appreciative for having that opportunity to like go from like bitterness to love, and I did it during this 10 days of silent meditation. It was so powerful. And so as you begin transforming your relationship with both your parents and the mother and the father within, you will start to notice a newfound lease on life, a sense of compassion and openness to new possibilities. At the end of the day, your parents represent your relationship with God because they brought us to earth. When you release your inner limitations created by your mother wound and father wound, you begin to expand into new pleasures and a sense of spaciousness in your exploration as a woman. Your heart gets shattered open, and the real potential of the inner mother and inner father, the tremendous capacity to hold immeasurable joy and immeasurable suffering from a place of compassion and wisdom. Healing the mother and father wounds may be a lifelong journey, and that's okay. We heal in layers, and new levels of healing appear as you keep expanding your love consciousness. So, I found that just doing these exercises will get you on the path to attracting your soulmate. Okay, so you don't have to do years and years of therapy. Of course, unraveling more layers is going to be a lifelong journey, but just for the sake of getting organized, getting mentally and emotionally organized for allowing healthy love to flow in, this is sufficient, what I've provided in this book. Okay. Um, on page 170, I talk about finding forgiveness and acceptance for your parents, like just going a little bit deeper. I share a story about how I met this woman at this, like I did this reconciliation workshop, really profound workshop that was run by Quakers, actually. And it was meant for people in prisons, and it was this program around like building emotional resilience and things like that, reconciliation, empathy building. And so I met this woman, and her father had killed her mother. He had strangled her to death, and I couldn't believe it, right? And she went through this process where she was so angry at him, didn't talk to him for years. And then she realized that like she was just blocking healthy love in her life because of that anger. And she went and visited him and forgave him on his deathbed, basically. And she felt so free. And she even now talks about him lovingly, which is unbelievable, right? So if she can do that, we can do that. We can find at least a sense of completion, right, within us. So, what I love about this work, and it's like work I really nerd out on, this mother wound, father wound stuff, because it's epigenetic, right? You heal like all the unconscious things within you from your lineage, and then it moves forward 7 generations. And I also believe on a consciousness level, it moves backwards 7 generations. So when you're doing this work of healing the mother wound and the father wound, you're actually healing 7 generations behind you and ahead of you. So it's profound. It's really, I love it. I mean, I've seen like my parents' consciousness grow, and the way I parent. So it's really powerful. Okay. Now, one note is, don't feel the need to fix your parents or heal your wounds quickly. Just take the first step of doing these exercises, like I shared. Okay. Um, and you're allowed to set healthy boundaries with your parents. Only talk to them whenever at the frequency that works for you. But try to build that healthy relationship with them. Okay. So, and the basis of all of this is self-love and self-compassion. Okay. So, because this work is very triggering, right? It brings up all of our core wounds, and so you're gonna need to practice a lot of self-soothing and positive self-talk, and just being your best friend, being your own inner mother, inner father, soothing yourself, holding yourself, caressing yourself. You know, um, takes time to whatever, grieve, journal, dance, whatever it takes. Okay. And now I'm going to move on to page 171, which is releasing ancestral blocks. And I love this too. It's something we don't really talk about in America, our ancestors. And yet, like, if you look at any indigenous culture, or, Eastern culture, any culture actually around the world, there's such an emphasis on ancestors. And, there's this book that I love. It's called It Didn't Start With You. It's by Mark Wolin, I think that's his name. It's a really fascinating book about how, like, he's a psychologist, and he talks about how, if one person from your family tree got rejected or was excommunicated, then it leaves a hole in your lineage, and then it impacts like a person or people in the progeny. The trauma passes down through the family tree. So it's so, we don't think about that. Okay. And so, and I know of another love coach. She does like hypnosis kind of healing, and she talks about how, you know it's because of certain ancestors that are blocking, someone's, you know perceptions of love, like a grandmother who's angry at her husband, and that getting passed down. And so, you know doing this work around just releasing your ancestral blocks, I think it'll not only reconnect you with your lineage's suffering and greatness, by the way, a lot of gifts from our lineage, but it also will just help give back anything that you're carrying, any shame, any guilt, any resentment, any bitterness that, your ancestors passed down to you. You can give it back. You don't need it anymore. Okay. And that's something I sometimes do in my coaching sessions. Like, if it comes up as something to be healed, then I'll hold space for calling in the ancestor and just kind of handing back that trauma that no longer serves. Okay. So, who would have thought that your great 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 grandmother could have an impact on your love life? In our modern world, most of us hardly consider our past relatives except through memories. Yet we're the living outcomes of all their actions, feelings, and situations they've ever been through. So fascinating, right? It's like everything that our ancestors went through is come down to us. There's this quote by Thich Nhat Hanh that I love. It's called, he says, if you look deeply into the palm of your hand, you will see your parents and all the generations of your ancestors. All of them are alive in this present moment. Each is present in your body. You are the continuation of these people. Wow, right? And I think there's also been scientific studies, again, epigenetic studies, that show that whatever trauma a grandmother went through gets transmitted to the grandchild, because the egg, your mother's egg, was inside your grandmother when she was going through whatever trauma, and then it passes down through your mother who was born, and then you're part of that egg too. So it's weird. It's like there have been studies that show that, you even just 2 generations ago, you might still be experiencing something similar. Okay. So, whether it's through DNA or through spiritual transmission, Their beliefs and stories pass down the lineage all the way to you. They say that we are affected most by the seven previous generations, and we affect our progeny 7 generations down. Life hasn't been easy for our ancestors. People died relatively young and lost children to diseases, alcoholism, abuse, oppression, poverty, disease, and societal trauma were rampant. Yet your ancestors did the best they could with the wisdom and resources they had. All of their actions over time helped raise your family's consciousness, and each generation laid the groundwork for the next. Their faith, whatever religion they followed, helped build your spiritual foundation. Your life now is so much more abundant and opportunity filled because of their love and sacrifices. Okay. So, just take a moment to think about your ancestors. Who were they? Where did they live? What were they like? Um, you know, what were their merits and stories of greatness? What hardships did they face? And I have, some contemplations here. It's something you probably haven't sat down to contemplate, but just spend a day journaling if you can. Okay. A lot of the issues raised above end up being unresolved and fester for the next few generations, showing up as heart blockages, limiting beliefs, and sabotage patterns. So, this might seem like a dense topic, and there are so many therapies possible. So, there's something called constellation therapy, I believe. There is the work that Mark Wolin offers around what I just talked about, the book. It was called It Didn't Start With You. It's, fascinating stuff. So if you feel like, there's something there for you, it's just an opportunity to follow through with it. But again, for our soulmate work, you don't need to do that necessarily. Okay. So I share 2 exercises. The first one is around honoring your ancestors. So kind of like the Chinese or the Native Americans, create an altar with your ancestors and, think of them when you're walking around during the day, like imagine holding hands with them. And then the second exercise is around releasing beliefs or wounds that no longer serve. So, just kind of similar to what I just talked about, like almost like cutting cords. So, and I'm just going to end today with this little prayer for our ancestors. Okay. My dearest ancestors, especially those from the past 7 generations, including my parents, grandparents, and great grandparents, etc., I am eternally grateful for you. Thank you for everything you've done for me. Thank you for your vision and insight, your hard work, and commitment to do your best in times that were so different than what we are experiencing now. It is because of you that I'm experiencing the conditions of my life. If I have hurt or harmed you in any way, I ask for forgiveness. On behalf of my ancestors, may we forgive those that we have hurt unintentionally. No, may we seek forgiveness from those we have hurt unintentionally or intentionally, and ask for forgiveness for those who have hurt our lineage throughout all of time. May we be blessed by God and live in peace, grace, abundance, and harmony with all beings. Thank you. There's actually a longer ancestral healing prayer that I did. It was like a 30-day prayer, and it was like, it was a page long, and you do it, I think, like 10 times a day. And I did it for 30 days. And it sounds intense, right? But, just doing this clearing work for your ancestors, it's one of the best things we could be doing, So especially if we want to end generational wounding. And all of this is about that. It's about like starting anew, healing what needs to be healed and then starting anew, like creating a new chapter for you and your partner and your progeny. And clearing any subconscious blocks. Okay. So I hope that, this section has been heart opening, or at least, allowed you to like spend some time and attention around your heart and releasing things that are no longer serving. And let's pray for healthy love to enter our lives. Thank you. See you next week.